And good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hot Seat on 933 KFM. I welcome you, our listeners, across this beautiful land, the Pearl of Africa. My name is Patrick Kamara. Tonight we are talking about a distinguished son of Uganda, a proud son of Uganda who has served his country and served his region so well. But now he's passed on. But who am I talking about this evening? We are talking about a man who in 1987 was appointed Executive Director, Uganda Export Promotions Council for a 5-year term, after which he became the second Director, AIDS Information Center for 3 years. Tonight we're speaking about a man in 1989, he started preparing for elective politics, which saw him elected Kagoma County MP from 2001-2006. In 2007, he was selected by the United States-based National Democratic Institute to monitor presidential elections in Sierra Leone. We are talking about a man in 2008 who was appointed Secretary of the Inter-Party Cooperation, which had emerged, including Uganda's People's Congress, Democratic Party, Justice Forum, FDC, and Conservative Party. Also talking about a man who many preferred to refer to as Busoga's encyclopedia due to his vast knowledge of matters around the region. He succumbed to complications associated with pneumonia on Saturday at the Mukono Church of Uganda Hospital. Dr. Frank Nabiswo. A giant has fallen, but my guest this evening to go through the profile of the man who has served his country and his region so well is another distinguished daughter and proud daughter of Uganda, and Busoga in particular, the Honorable Salam Musumba. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Patrick, and thank you, KFM, for finding the time and the reason to pay tribute.
I could have gone on and adding profile on this guy.
What is his full name? Do you know?
Dr. Frank Nabiswo is where I stopped.
Frank Wilberforce Nabiswo. Bulima. Yes.
You know, sometime back,
yep,
I was doing a documentary about Busoga. And I happened to go to all the districts of Busoga that make Busoga, and one of them was Kamuli.
Yes.
And I found a lady there as a district chairperson.
Yes.
And then I said, how do you even manage to be a district chairperson? You're a woman. And that lady told me, Brother Patrick, you even have to remind me that I'm a lady. And I'm talking about Salam Musumba.
The one and only Salam Musumba.
And then he said, by the way, some people don't understand us, that Busoga has given Uganda so much. Yeah. And then you went on giving me the names of people who have given so much of Uganda.
The names.
I remember you talked about Chesimira. I remember you talked about Nadiope. Yeah. I remember you talked about Kivedinda. I remember you talked about
Bishop
Bamoze, and then you talked about, of course, Kandaga, and there was the name of Dr. Frank Nabiswo.
Yes, please.
So to you as a leader, and to you from that area, this is a loss. But tell us what you know and what you remember about this man.
Thank you very much. And to all of us, really, it's a great loss. My sympathies to the entire family and all of us who know him and who knew him, who worked with him. My first contact with Dr. Nabiswo was professional, from a professional perspective. I used to head a program called HIV/AIDS Prevention and Blood Donor Recruitment in the Uganda Red Cross Society back then, when HIV/AIDS was hot. This one has mellowed. Yeah. But the one we dealt with was...
It was ugly. It was ravaging.
Hot. It ravaged this nation. And so as the head of that program in Uganda Red Cross Society, we had a consortium of actors then. There weren't many. We were led by the Ministry of Health, and these were people like the late Mr. Ochero. There was Dr. Okware Sam. There was Dr. Namara. There were so many people, professionals. And then there was the AIDS Information Center. That AIDS Information Center was supported by the American government because to know your serostatus was so important so that you can take care of yourself. That's the time we were bringing in ARVs. That's the time we were increasing knowledge. The myths are working against so many myths. You remember that was the time people flooded Zimbabwe to go and eat
the soil
woman of Nanyonga. Yes. And that was the time when you would find stray dogs dead because people had all sorts of myths that if you took the liver of the dog, then you would be. There were so many myths, and so the intervention by the American government to American people to the people of Uganda was an AIDS information center where there was free testing and counseling and all the attendant support. And so, at the time when Dr. Nabiswo became the executive director, there was possibly 3 branches, Mbale, Mbarara, in addition to Kampala, because the north was all sealed off because of war. And so, you can imagine a service as big as testing to be only limited to those regional centers, and actually being seen around the information center
was also not very
was taboo. People were in hiding, and so that's the time when he offered leadership in that place, and that's when I knew him, because we had so many coordination meetings. That's when they had just set up the Uganda AIDS Commission. And I remember it was the late Honorable Manuel Pinto who chaired it, and there was so much camaraderie in the team, and that's how I first knew him. Then I got to know him when he became Member of Parliament.
For Kagoma. The bigger Kagoma.
The big Kagoma.
Yes.
And Kagoma is fit to be a district in its own. That's the size.
Okay,
I could only compare
that's how they start asking for districts. Okay.
That's how they start. But it doesn't make sense no more. But it you can only compare it with Kashari then. It was as big as Kashari in its entirety, as big as Katzo. That was the size of Butembe. And it had
Kagoma is the same as what in Busoga Kingdom we call Butembe, right?
No. Kagoma is Kagoma, Butembe is Butembe.
Okay.
And so, as a Member of Parliament, he was actually a very versatile one. He was so informed, and he had a style of communication which was only Nabiswo's. You know, he discusses complex issues.
He was the man
in a simple
gift of the gab.
He knew how to unpack these things and repack them for you in a logical way, in a simple, non-threatening manner.
He was not only a man with a gifted mind, but he also knew how to express that mind.
That is true.
To express himself.
That is true.
And sometimes in a beautiful way.
And you know, he wasn't aggressive like me. He was so entertaining in all this. And so you knew that with the Kule Park, with Dick Nyai, and with him and Agri Awori, there was
substance.
There was this character of politics that only was bequeathed to us from independence. From there, it has become crude, raw,
sadly,
bare-knuckled. There's not the entertainment. I mean, you listen to Mara Tubo, you feel entertained even when there's a big issue.
Yes.
You listen to Eli Karuhanga, and you're entertained. You listen to Patrick Monda. I mean, Elieza Mwanda. You know when you mention those names, and I look now, I feel a sense of big loss for Uganda. And there's some people who have not even tasted.
That.
They've not savored what debate is, what the civility, the finesse.
Dr. Frank Nabiswo is also a man who served so well in the NRM government, who was in NRM at one point, but later had to cross, just like many, I think, of yourselves.
Let me tell you, that history should not be lost on us. These are guys I hear when he was working for the UN Habitat in Kenya. His home used to be one of those meeting places, external wing, that were used. You can imagine if today you can be kidnapped for traveling to Kenya and checking into a hotel and taking a walk to have another engagement, and you're kidnapped. You can imagine that he could host people.
Real clandestine. Real subversive. Real risky stuff.
And still, they made it. So, I believe he was cheated by this government, the NRM, like it has cheated many more, in not recognizing his input and recognizing his worth. That said, there's so much history that I'm not privy to.
Of course.
And so I can only tell you the part that I know. There are two things that I loved about Dr. Nabiswo. He was, by the way, to a large extent, he was a lone hunter.
Okay.
He was a lone hunter. He did not participate much in the groupings that we had, Young Parliamentary Association.
And listen to what Augustine Ruzindana talks about this man.
Yes.
He says Dr. Nabiswo struggled for the betterment of Uganda, both in NRM and opposition.
Yes.
And that I remember his many journeys to lecture to Chankwanzi Kada courses in the youthful days of the movement.
Yes.
In his later years, he was in the opposition, still seeking to pursue the same objective that had led him to the struggle.
Yes.
He was both an academic and an activist to the end.
Yes.
And may his soul rest in peace. Those are the words of Augustine Ruzindana.
That is a very
Does it capture him so well?
It does.
Okay.
It does very, very well. And coming from a man like Augustine Ruzindana, he's not a man that... he's a man that is anchored in the choice of words. He too is a linguist.
He is.
Yes.
So, but do you think Dr. Nabiswo could have died a bitter man for when looking at Uganda?
He didn't have space for bitterness. His character was not about bitterness. He accepted life in its different versions, the way they appeared. Of course, he deserved better. But there was nobody to give it to him, and he wasn't a fighter. He wasn't a crude man to go grab it. No, that wasn't him.
Busoga, the land of his birth, where he's also going to be buried,
Yes.
and has been spending most of the time in his villages.
He's a foot soldier in the true sense.
Yes.
This guy was accused of not buying a car when he was Member of Parliament. It's one of the reasons he was not re-elected. Said this is a mean guy. He couldn't even buy himself a car, and yet you cannot. No car can run faster than him on foot. He is at burials, at every social gathering, graduations, burials, meetings with elders, as a man from Mwiri. By the way, do you know he was a singer, a fantastic singer?
Okay.
At the different burials of Mwiri old boys that have been to our only social event,
You've taken the anthem.
He was a fantastic singer. You should hear his voice. Things that you wouldn't give to him, you know.
Stop there. That's all.
All right,
it's not your area.
it's not my area, but I tried because all this is for him to be able to draw to paint a picture for the public to understand.
You know what I'm saying?
Man.
Because if he's there among his people, he's working with them, he's eating with them, he's going to church with them, and see how the region now has suffered poverty.
You see, our poverty is a complex issue. Kamara, invite me one day and I'll tell you the honest truth about who we are and why we are poor. I will. I owe it to myself and I owe it to the region to understand why this debilitating poverty has hit us and hit us for so long.
Yeah, but also you should know that the story of Busoga is not different from the story of Toro.
No, you should hear this one. Then we can compare after we've told the two different stories. Because we were rich once, very, very rich. And the Busoga that Dr. Nabiswo represents was a rich one.
That's what
the one that was able to build schools, and build Mwiri. Mwiri was a community school built by the Chavazinga on the model of Budo. Busoga College Mwiri.
And he educated people like Dr. Bote.
He did. And I'll tell you, the Mwiri boys are the very proud, loud guys.
I hear it in Andromeda.
You do? And that yet is just a mere sample. But we will look for big guys and big names like Bro Abaliwano, Justice Egonda and Tende. And I don't know who else.
So, but
Dakakuba.
You know what I don't understand, and I'm saying this with a lot of respect.
Yeah.
What Busoga has contributed to Uganda, there are very few areas who can even imagine to try and compare in terms of individuals.
True. The engineers,
the medical doctors, the first engineers, the first accountant, the first whatever are from Busoga.
Yeah, we are. We are just a fantastic breed. But the biggest problem, we are not thieves. To be successful in this.
But when you're saying you're not thieves, then you're also saying those who are thieves.
Of course, I know them.
Attacking the rest of us.
The rest of you must defend yourself. I can defend because I'm only allowed to talk about my tribe, and then I will not be accused of being.
Are you insinuating the rest are thieves? Honorable Salam Musumba, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Kamara, and my guest this evening, Honorable Salam Musumba. And we are remembering the life of a man who has served his region and country so well, the late Dr. Frank Wilberforce Bulime Nabiswo. I think now I got the names right.
You got it. You got it. Thank you.
So, if you guys in FDC, by the way, I'm saying this because some people will say, Salam has moved, FDC is still...
No, there's no way you can talk about FDC without talking about Salam. We registered this party. Yeah, come on. We won't allow you to cheat.
Because I hear now you're PPF or PFF or something like that.
No worry, we are still FDC
but
in spirit.
He was the chairman of the Elders Council, right?
Yeah, he was.
In a party that we could say is fractured.
You could
on that alone, you guys could even have increased on his pressure.
That is true, but I'll also tell you that today, the 16th of December 2024, we made 20 years as Forum for Democratic Change.
Wow.
So it is such a curious coincidence that Dr. Nabiswo becomes the prize for Najana Nkumbi today. It's too curious for me. Talking about the elders' report, it is part of what fractured, which completed the total fracture of this party. Sadly true.
So every big man or great man, they also have an Achilles heel. Could that have been his?
Of course.
Could that have been his Achilles heel?
And this caused him a lot of my reading, because I last saw him at a function maybe a month ago at the memorial of Dr. Kazungu. And I had been at a radio station where I promised the country that I would name every actor in the demise of this party. So when I met him, he said, listen, I'm waiting to be named. I said, sir, if I wanted to name you, if I had issues with you, I would have named you already. But I could see that he was conflicted.
Okay.
He was conflicted within himself and unhappy. I don't know, maybe partly of this or maybe other things, but I strongly believe that partly of this.
That's the perception you get.
Yes.
You could also be wrong yourself.
I could be wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, I could be wrong.
So, but probably those are the elders that could have tried as much as possible to heal the rifts or, the wounds that have happened in the Forum for Democratic Change, which today has made is celebrating 20th anniversary of its founding. Unfortunately, one of the founding members, Dr. Kizza Besigye, is the guest of the state in Lozera.
Yeah. And also it's not lost on us that as a founder, president and leader of our party, Dr. Besigye will have a cold Christmas in Lozera.
Is it also true that the prison authorities have actually put a ban on people visiting Lozera until further notice?
The prison has been imprisoned in prison. This is what has befallen us as a country.
You have never lost an opportunity to use the flowery language, even in very difficult circumstances.
No, but that's the best description I'm giving it.
The prison has been in prison.
Yes, in prison. And this is what has happened. We have a Shaija. What's his title? The boss of the prisons.
Yes.
Last Friday was the last visiting day, until 17th January. So
until 17th January.
Until 17th January.
And does he give a reason?
No. And I don't think that this has happened before, because Dr. Besigye has been in prison in Christmas 20 years ago. He has taken it upon himself to imprison the prison in prison. And so you can't visit Dr. Besigye, you can't visit Haj Lutale, you can't visit nobody because of Besigye. The psychology that leads you to this evil act. I mean, to shut off everyone's right, even of...
Were you planning to have Christmas as FDC in the precincts of Lozera?
No,
probably for
we have
security
postponed.
purposes.
Listen, we have postponed Christmas 2024.
You do what?
We have postponed it.
Is it postponable?
We have. Because you see, the whole essence of Christmas as a festive season is for the world to acknowledge the birth of a Savior that came to set prisoners free. And it's the same season that Biabashaija and others.
He's tightened the knot on the prison.
Yes. It's not enough to be in prison. They must imprison the prison to imprison you doubly in prison. And so, Biabashaija, take note that we have taken judicial notice that you are a cruel man. You represent cruelty and devilish plots.
I think I have. Do I have another guest online, Mr. Stephen Mbidi? Okay, I'll be getting the member of parliament representing one of the split Kagoma. I think now Kagoma North.
Okay.
Later in the show, I think the Honorable Brandon will be joining us.
Okay.
Joining us.
So this is the fate the country suffers. It's not enough to kidnap the man. It's not enough to have him tried in a military court martial. It's not enough to have him out of circulation in Luzira. They must imprison Luzira.
You know, what as we go back to Dr. Nabiswo, you know, there's some characters, individuals that are so gifted that even in difficult situations, people can still talk good about them. People can still call this around.
Yes.
I've seen messages on social media from across the political divide.
And that is how big he is.
In recognition and respect of Dr. Frank Nabiswo. And I'm thinking, if people can humble themselves, I know in death sometimes people be malleable and talk soft, but in some cases they don't. But here clearly you can see people across the divide have a lot of respect and good words of Dr. Nabiswo.
You see, Dr. Nabiswo
is not very common today.
Dr. Nabiswo is not a quarrelsome person. He doesn't pick quarrels. He doesn't pick fights. At least for as long as I've known him. And his rebukes are in a subtle way. Subtle, you know, an elderly. He comes from that crop of politicians that are subtle, whose sense of humor is
values.
and values, and also people with a sense of dignity. That how can it be my mouth that says these things? You know, some dignity of even respecting their age.
And you know, because I look at that and I see the current generation, including some people in leadership, and you have a PhD, maybe you're even a lecturer at the university, you're a professor, and when they stand to speak, I'm like, really?
No, those are, like, really? You see, some of these PhD holders are really patchwork. You know, let me tell you, most of please don't. There are people who say they are doctors these days, and you wonder. I mean, the doctorate has become so cheap because these are guys who get people to write for them thesis. They buy everybody on the board to get a title, a doctor, but you don't look one. I mean, the label is even more dignified than you, the person labeled. And so those titles, some of them are questionable. They are fake. But I'll tell you, Dr. Nabiswo studied in the U.S. It's not these quack doctorates. He studied in the U.S. with a class of people like Dr. Kazungu and that pack.
So now, people. You know, you said something fundamental about his lifestyle, how simple he was, and that's you know, he was not tempted into the life issues of acquiring and amassing wealth and stuff, like, even though he was not a poor man, but he could still choose just to walk. And he loved walking, and I think he was a frugal man.
He was, and that's why probably he has lived that long.
Why is it that that frugal nature, that frugal lifestyle, is so not so common nowadays? Everybody wants to amass.
You see, a person who has no self-worth wants to be defined by a car, the car they drive. Actually, the value of the car is what makes him. He doesn't make the car makes him. And so that is the saddest reality we are in. But we should live simply. I mean, it doesn't break you. You live within your means. You live, and he was a happy man. By the way, he had no issue with people who had. If your choice was to have and amass, go on.
That's the choice you've made.
It's the choice you've made. And for his people to have found fault with him and actually denied him a re-election.
No, but that's your own addition. But at least
no.
You cannot know
you
that.
See, Kagoma is next to Kamuli.
Yes.
So when I'm driving through all those places, I actually stop at every trading center to greet people. So I know the psychology of the people I live with, the people I have lived with all my life. I can tell.
You think you're struggling like the rest of us. How can you be our leader? You're just walking with us. Probably
is that the meaning? But you see, representation.
Like us.
He was not needed because he has a brain.
I mean, because perception is everything.
Yeah.
The world runs on perceptions.
I hear you. But for Dr. Nabiswo, he was a Mahatma Gandhi of our times. He was the Chirunda Chivedi in the stock of leaders. Chirunda Chivedi was a walking soldier. You would find Chirunda Chivedi at a barrier at 3 a.m. He knew his contacts to the end of who your son is, who was your mother, who was your grandmother. They knew the lineages, and that's what made them strong and anchored into the society of Busoga.
I've met some of the children, some of them my friend like Asha Birabo. We're gonna take a break, and Hotseat will be right back. Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hotseat. My name is Patrick Amara, and my guest this evening in the studio, Honorable Salam Musumba. We are also joined online by the Honorable Brandon Kintu, Member of Parliament representing Kagoma North. I think Kagoma North is part of the larger Kagoma, where the Honorable Dr. Frank Nabiswo was. Honorable Brandon Kintu, can you hear me?
I can hear you very properly. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. And I know Uganda is mourning a distinguished son, Busoga is mourning a distinguished person, but Kagoma is even equally hit harder. What do you know about this man, whom, by the way, in some way you have also put on the shoes that he once had to wear by representing the people of Kagoma? How will you remember the Honorable Dr. Frank Nabiswo?
Actually, it's not only Uganda or Kagoma or Busoga. Just say the whole world is mourning a great icon. The Honorable Dr. Frank Nabiswo, if you don't know about him, then you know nothing about the politics of this country. He was a very good legislator. That's one thing I can say. He was a very eloquent and very confident person. He would raise on the floor. I interested myself last week to check on the answers. That his legislation was very super. You remember we had a crisis of Butamira Forest.
Yes.
The Honorable Salam there can testify. And most of the colleagues that were with him in Parliament, they even nicknamed him Mr. Butamira. So he stood by fact. The Honorable Nabiswo was a member of Parliament who would not be compromised. You can't compromise him. He lived by principles. Away from politics, he's a great educationalist. He was the Vice Chancellor of Busoga University. He has taught when you look at his biography, and he has been so supportive. In Kagoma, we have an association called Kagoma County Students Association. Mm-hmm. He's been a patron for all this time, and it inspired most of us also to ensure that we would go to university. So he was a great educationalist, and most of the functions that the Honorable Dr. Frank Nabiswo would prioritize would be attending graduation. And then he would give this talk that inspires. And then he's also a culture man. He respects the values of culture. In Ginger Diocese, where I subscribe in the Catholic Church with the Honorable Salam Musumba there, we have a cultural research center. He has supported this center in identifying and also promoting the cultural values within Busoga. So he's been such a great person. I know, like the Honorable Salam would tell you about the Dr. Frank Nabiswo, because she must have worked with him closely, but that is the man, and that's the man that this country and the world has lost. Very well respected, The other thing that is extraordinary.
I want to agree. I want to agree with you, Brandon, because when I look at the social media posts, people, talking about Dr. Frank Nabiswo, you see across the political divide a lot of respect for this man, and which also brings me to a question. Why is it that we are, as a country, losing men and women of substance that can go across the aisle, still under respect across that political divide? And people who are frugal, people who have a high sense of integrity, and people, when they go, for example, to represent in Parliament, when they speak, they are persuasive, but also their intellect is high. And yet we're supposed to be progressing as a nation, getting from one state to another, being better. But as a country, in some areas, Mr. Kintu, we seem to be stagnant, or at worst, even going backwards.
Well, for some of us who also look and read and admire, like we admire my sister you have in the studio there, we look up to them, we listen to them. We need to, because you cannot actually put the level of legislation of the 11th Parliament to the 7th Parliament or the 8th Parliament. There is a lot of difference. But this is also an effect from the grassroots, where we go and converse votes from the voters. Do the voters vote the right people? We as leaders who offer ourselves, are we offering ourselves to the places of responsibility we understand? So the moment we get the bottom, because initially we would have elders that would probably discuss and say, I remember in one of the conversation with the Honorable Salam, that she was there and he requested to come and represent the people. There was no competition because they knew they were sending a material in Parliament. But if we also look at politics as an occupation, now it will value. So, but we need to work. We still have hope that when we look, and I believe that most of my colleagues, that those that never knew the Honorable Dr. Frank Nabiswo read, would understand and would love to walk his footsteps to make our country and legislation better.
Okay, there you are. At least Honorable Salam Musumbo, you've heard from the Kagoma North Member of Parliament.
Yes,
they're still respectful. They still recognize, even though Brandon comes from the other side of the politics, he still recognizes the value.
Brandon is being honest because he has never contested with Dr. Nabiswo. He's many generations after Nabiswo was the MP. But also, take it or leave it, in Busoga, you can never displace Nabiswo from the society. You can't uproot him from the society, which admires him. You can tell from the very many social functions he got invited to as an inspirational leader. And in Busoga we have two parts of Busoga. We have Bulamoji, and then we have Abatenga. We have two dialects, the Lulamoji and then the Lusoga we speak.
Okay.
The Lulamoji is from Kaliro and from Namtumba. But these are all princes from Bunyoro.
Yes.
So, him as a person from Bulamoji who settled in Kagoma, which is part of the other.
Okay.
He fits so well. In fact, you wouldn't know this unless I tell you. Because he's such an accepted mix of who we are.
Let me come back to you, Brandon. When I look back in Busoga and I see great men and women, there have been so many fasts for Uganda. Busoga has suffered so many fasts. If you look back, first, I think, civil engineer, first medical doctor, first woman vice president, first woman speaker, so many fasts. And yet, at the moment, it appears in the last 20 years or so, there hasn't been grooming. And I'm not saying they haven't groomed you, but of course they have. But there hasn't been grooming where we're going to have men and women who can also punch above their weight and be respected across the divide, like the likes of Dr. Nabiswo, the late Kivedinda, the late Kesimira, people like those. What is wrong?
Well, Busoga did not only have them. Actually, if you check your statistics very properly, you may find that we offer the best brains in civil service. If you go to these government agencies and ministries, the principal, the technical people, the accounting officers, these are very serious young daughters and sons of Busoga. We've had those people, and we still have, including the one that you are with in the studio now, and many more. But only that, this is a country, it's a nation where we really need just to wake up probably and focus on how do we develop. But I want to assure you, in consultation with the seniors, we have like the Honorable Salam Sumba and the rest who are still living, we have gotten other avenues. Like now we have a consortium, Busoga Development Consortium, which is trying to address all this. And also we are calling that let us come together. We were just starting these steps. We've been given an opportunity to be oriented. Can we listen? Can we understand? Our seniors also come to us. It's a region with great brains and people who understand. The Honorable Salam Sumba told you there that I did contest with the Honorable Frank Nabiswo. But this person you go and consult, and yet you are contesting with him. So these are exceptionals that we need to carry on so that these names do not go completely out in Busoga, but we can have some for them.
So, what explains today the region that was the envy of the rest of the country in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 60s, is in the last 30 years or so, has had very bad image, a lot of negativity.
2 million poor people.
Why is it that you are the leader?
Planet?
Because Busoga was the envy of the world, and now in the last 30 years, there's that bad perception. And yet people like you are still there. How do you fight back to reclaim the glory that once was?
First of all, the history of Busoga is extremely clear. But those that made history in Busoga, the generation is not completely done. We can revamp, we can revive this and see. But when you talk about poverty, Patrick, you can't just tell me that we are poor, yeah, indeed, but you cannot regionalize and say Busoga there, because we have gurus, we have serious business people, we have investments in Busoga. So what makes, I may not answer exactly what makes, but we just really have to put a way forward. I don't think this is a Busoga of lamenting now. We want to focus on a Busoga that we can move and get glory back again.
How?
The Honorable Salam has asked the question. If you can answer that, then we'll go take a break.
How? The Honorable Salam Sumba herself, she's a member and a founding member of Busoga Consortium for Development. And the word is very clear, Busoga Consortium for Development. I know we have Busoga Agenda. We have so many programs. We just have to seriously and strategically insist, if we would sweep off politics only, of course every day is politics, but into development programs, we shift off politics, Busoga will get great again.
All right. Mr. Brandon Kintu, a Member of Parliament for Kagoma North, and the spokesperson of the NRM caucus in Parliament. I want to thank you so much for chipping in and also talking about the man who, the giant of Busoga has fallen, and also for being...
Maybe, Patrick.
Yes, sir.
Before probably we go, I really I will sincere condolence to the family, the people of Kagoma, the people of Uganda, the people of Busoga, all the regions. By the other extraordinary thing on Professor, he was a choir master. He was a great musician.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, even Honorable Salam talked about it. Yeah.
I even tried singing.
Even made a very poor attempt to try. And
my sister there, you know how we did the extraordinary, the Uganda Matters 2 years ago. So she's also exceptional. We really send condolences to all the political parties because he was a political icon. We shall miss him, but we only have to work and make sure that his ideals somehow are real fit and the angel of him like the whole of this country.
Honorable Brandon Kintu, thank you so much. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I shall open the line so that the rest of Ugandans can also have their say on the man that has passed on. We'll be right back. Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Kamara, and today my guest in the studio is Honorable Salam Sumba. We are paying tribute to the late Honorable Dr. Frank Nabiswo, we had before took the break from the Member of Parliament representing Kagoma North, the Honorable Alex Brandon Kintu. A man also who competed against Dr. Frank Nabiswo, but he is very respectful of the man he contested against. I'm taking calls right now so that we get to hear the Ugandans' views as they have their say on this man. I have a call online. Hello.
Yes, Mr. Patrick. Thanks for the show.
Thank you. You're welcome, sir. Good evening.
Good evening to you. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much.
You're talking to Kode Michael.
All right, go right ahead, Mr. Kode.
You're live on Korean Center. Now,
yes.
two things.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor, Nyasi, Gen Z, I'm really going to miss him. And someone who's interested to follow up with the current affairs of our country.
Mm.
Now, we are all human beings and we make mistakes.
Mm.
And the legacy he has left behind, like how she's trying to let us, people who didn't know him in details, to understand whom the person the country is going to miss. Maybe if there are some of his books he wrote, I request Honor to read it for me so that I can also search for it. I'll be well versed. I keep on understanding the doctor was gone. Then finally, Honor Musumba, when last time we were hosted on the show about the FDC matters, you promised us that you're going to write a book. I don't know how far. If you're going to let me know so that I can get my copy inside. Because Ugandans, we are good at appreciating people when they are dead.
But why are you talking about this thing? What are you insinuating?
No, I'm not about to die, my brother. Be careful.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Kode, sir. Let me take another caller online. Hello.
Good evening. Good evening, Patrick.
Good evening. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Annette. I'm calling from Namgongo. Good evening, Honorable Musumba.
Hello, my sister.
For me, I concur with Kode. Why do we give people their flowers when they are gone? So for me, I've called to appreciate Honorable Sarah Musumba. She's not going anywhere, obviously. We should have a program where we appreciate people for the work that they've done for this country. At the time I saw, not once, twice, Madame Sarah Musumba in a certain supermarket. She was doing her own shopping. Can you imagine the simplicity of her
yes, I do.
Of her, the way she appeared. So why didn't they bother her that she was in? She was in there as a normal human being, no guard, nothing. She was on her own. So simple. Her short hair, she looked fresh. My God, I looked at this woman. How much I approached her, then I said, you know what?
Please do next time.
I'm not going to overwhelm her. But I looked at her and I admired her and I said, people like these should be, surely, someone works for Parliament and is not bothered by the people around her. She just wants to breathe the same air as we breathe. My God, I have so much to say.
Okay, and then thank you. This is a serious
it's a serious matter.
Person.
And what she speaks about
you have inspired this person very tremendously.
Let me tell you, I have made a choice, not a campaign.
Yes.
To live simply. I do believe we need to live simply. I mean, these airs, these peeps are bloody nothing.
It is a bubble.
The beauty of being organic and normal and ordinary is what's really
because you're living life without being pretentious.
I can't even hold the fakeness of it.
Let me take another caller. Hello.
Yes, Kamara.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Juma is calling from the veteran about Busega.
Oh, Juma in Busega. Go right ahead.
Greeting to Iron Lady first.
Hello there, my dear. In the jam, locked up.
Thank you for serving the nation always, 24 hours.
Thank you.
I appreciate you for making it up to KFM tonight. But, for those who stood for this country, their flowers will follow them up to the grave. So it will be worse for those ones whom the public can pray that you go today or you go when are you going to die. So that's the privilege for us. But spiritually, we mourn together with those ones who are mourning for their beloved one.
For us, what we are talking about is service deliveries. Why don't we fight corruption boldly enough? When you get a suspect with the evidence, why don't we first pick one person to be like example? You'll find the government leaders, they are the ones corrupting the wananchi who has nothing completely. Good night.
Okay, Juma there in what? It looks
He
like
must be in a traffic jam. Locked tight.
So you see, people appreciate. People see, people know who's doing what.
They do.
If you don't do a good job, Ugandans will know. You can't take the Ugandans for granted. Ugandans are smart.
Let me
they will
tell
give
you,
credit where credit is due.
what internet has done, it's a liberating tool. And people are able to work through some of these things.
Okay.
Even the propaganda, they rip through it.
Okay, let me just take maybe one more caller, and then we try to conclude this. Hello.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm Ronald calling from Namugongo.
Ronald in Namugongo, you're loud and clear in the studio. Go right ahead with your question or comment.
I'm so happy for you to bring for us that mama today. Very happy.
Okay, you're welcome.
Which actually you've been taking long to bring a woman today.
Kamara, you're guilty.
Yeah, unfortunately, in the workings of television and radio, there's a man called the producer. Okay, go right ahead.
Those are the powerful women we wanted, and I'm so happy. I just wanted to send my condolence message for the whole of Busoga region for the loss of the doctor, the powerful person, which was so good. We all admired, and the whole entire country. We have lost a very powerful person.
Yeah, I know.
Internal peace.
There's another distinguished son of Busoga right now, I think, who is in hospital. I think the chairperson for Iganka or something like that, who's been sick, Mr. Gabula. Sick.
Mr. Gabula is sick.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
Wish him the best. I want him to recover as soon as possible. Yes, we have another caller online. Hello. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, Sebo.
What's your name and where are you calling from, sir?
My name is Nkutu Enna Moses.
Nkutu, there are so many Nkutus in Iganga there.
I tell you, those are the royals.
Go right ahead, sir, Mr. Nkutu.
I have to tell you that I'm a very bad student of the late because he initiated me into politics. But I quit politics at some stage, which I shouldn't have done. But the colleague with whom I was with, Daudi Migereko, went for.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
I really feel so bad for such a great man to get out of our eyes and our spirits. But we say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un.
Okay.
I also praise Madam Salam for being a great contributor to what the late has been.
All right, thank you very much. When you hear an individual talking about like that, and then he's talking about the people who are initiated together, people like Daudi Megereko, then you know we're also dealing with another man of character. What's going to be your concluding remark? My
concluding remarks is that the contribution made by Dr. Nabiswo is an indelible ink. Kamara, let me tell the public that you remember that that pack of minutes, the minutes that were alleged to have been from a team of people who swore they would rule us forever from Nabiswo. He tabled that, and it's an official document, an official record of the country. He's the only one who had the courage. We are talking about 20 years ago. He laid it on table. It's an official document. You can read it. The minutes. Somebody just gave me those minutes again from Ankole there to say, listen, have they followed through this plot? And so you're talking about.
Is this something attuned to the elders of Zion?
That meeting they had in which they are alleged to have plotted to say that they must take all the education opportunities from the rest of Uganda, they must take all the money from us, they must do all that. He tabled it. So he was not a man of rumor-mongering class when he believed that this was a national matter. He took the great risk. And I'm telling you, it's partly the reason he was fought.
Honorable Salam Sumba, I want to thank you so much for the time you have given us, for the submission you've given, for the value you have added on this show.
Thank you.
But also for understanding the man who served his country so well. And all of you who have been listening to this program, I want to thank you for the privilege of your company.
You have not told the public that he will be buried. He will be laid to rest on Saturday.
Okay.
In Nsobe. So let's be there to pay.
Saturday in Nsobe.
Saturday in Nsobe, yes.
May the soul of Dr. Frank Nabiswo rest in peace. Good night. Amen. And God bless Uganda.